In the last 40 years, St. Elias Alpine Guides has, as far as I know, pretty much climbed every large significant peak in the park, including Mount Blackburn, Mount Drum, Mount Bona, Hanford, Mount St. Elias, pretty much anything big and high in the park. St. Elias Alpine Guides has climbed in the last 40 years.
You know, a lot of people say, what does it take to be a mountain guide? And the answer is, to be able to pick any mountain and be able to get up there to the top. Some mountaineers come into it with a goal. They have a dream of climbing Mount Everest or Denali or whatever it is one day, and they're trying to figure out what is the path to get there. For example, climbing Mount Rainier versus climbing Mount Bear, you're heading up to a somewhat similar elevation, but one trip takes 3 days and one trip takes 10. And just this realization that the mountain is so much bigger. Even if you're not adding that much technical skill, you're adding a ton more time in the elements, kind of the mental fortitude that it takes to do something like that, along with, of course, the physical endurance to last longer in the mountains.
For some, the Wrangels slot in their climbing progression from a Cascade 3 to 4 day climb, and they're trying to bridge the gap to a 3-week trip on Denali. And so climbing a 12 to 16,000 foot peak in our park over 7 to 10, 12 days is a great stepping stone. For others, they'll be going on that progression, thinking they want to get to Denali and want to start climbing the fixed lines and following the boot tracks of everyone else, and then get kind of waylaid by the untouched specialness that's out there, where a busy Wrangell climb is maybe 2 parties on it.
The lack of infrastructure and the absolute size of this park has left a lot of peaks and routes on peaks untouched or begging for that second ascent, because only one person, 30, 40, 50 years ago decided to commit to the plane that went in there, or had the dog sled team to take them into the base of a peak. It's been such a huge park, and there's so much difficult terrain that it's left a lot of opportunities. And even to this day, there are plenty of peaks that haven't been climbed, and there are countless routes on iconic peaks that have only been done once or never. A great example is a peak right behind me here on Mount Blackburn. The first ascent was a woman named Dora Keene, and the second ascent of this south face of Mount Blackburn is still waiting to be repeated. You could go climb Denali or Everest and have something that everybody in a room knows what you're talking about. But while you were on that mountain, there were fixed lines all over the place. There are thousands of people that can relate to that experience, which is maybe what somebody wants. But I like those stories that only a handful of people can relate to. And here in Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, the lack of infrastructure and the lack of popularity, because it's not the absolute tallest peak in North America, creates a sense of adventure because no one's out here. Not seeing Sherpas anywhere, carrying your own gear, not having fixed lines and established camps, and helicopters bringing in all kinds of food and things like that. You've got the gear that you have on your back, and you're working your way up a big mountain completely as one team with no assistance, no camps to set up ahead of time. It's just you and your team. That, I think, is a more authentic and real experience. And when you meet the handful of other people in life that have, climbed a peak in Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, that connection, I think, beats anything than a whole room knowing what Denali or Mount Everest is.